We are taught from an early age that control is the key to success. That if we just work hard enough, plan well enough, and push forward with enough determination, we can force life to give us what we want. We hold on tightly, white-knuckling through decisions, obsessing over outcomes and fearing anything that doesn't go according to plan. We live in a world that thrives on speed. Everything is about instant results, quick fixes, and immediate gratification. We get frustrated when a web page takes more than a few seconds to load. We get impatient when we don't see progress in our careers, our relationships, or our personal growth right away. We want things now, and when they don't happen on our timeline, we start to question everything. But growth, real, lasting, meaningful growth, doesn't happen overnight. Nothing truly valuable is built in an instant. The most successful businesses weren't created in a day. The strongest relationships weren't formed in a week. The greatest achievements didn't happen without years of unseen effort. Everything worthwhile takes time. Patience isn't about passively waiting. It's about actively trusting. It's the ability to keep going even when you don't see immediate results. It's the belief that just because you don't have it yet doesn't mean it isn't on its way. Look at nature. A tree doesn't grow the moment you plant the seed. You don't see anything for weeks, sometimes months, but under the surface something is happening. The roots are spreading, the foundation is being built, and when the time is right, it breaks through the soil. But if you were to dig up the seed every day to check on it, you would ruin the process. The same goes for your life. Every time you doubt yourself because things aren't happening fast enough, you're disrupting your own growth. Every time you compare your journey to someone else's, you're overlooking what's happening beneath the surface of your own progress. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Think about the times in your life when you wanted something so badly, but it didn't happen when you expected it to. Maybe you wanted a job, but the offer didn't come. Maybe you wanted a relationship to work, but it fell apart. Maybe you set a goal, but it felt like no matter how hard you worked, you weren't moving forward. And yet, looking back, haven't there been moments when you realized that the delay was actually working in your favor? That the job you didn't get led you to something better? That the relationship that didn't work out made room for someone who truly aligned with you? That the goal you were chasing forced you to grow in ways you never expected? Patience is the understanding that just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't. It's the discipline to keep showing up, to keep doing the work even when there are no immediate results. It's resisting the urge to rush the process, knowing that timing matters. We don't get to control when things happen, but we do get to control how we respond in the waiting. Most people give up too soon, not because they weren't capable, but because they lost patience. They stopped believing in the process. They abandon the effort right before the breakthrough. But those who trust the process, those who keep moving forward despite the uncertainty, are the ones who ultimately see the results. Patience isn't just about waiting. It's about preparing. It's about using the time in between to strengthen yourself, to grow, to refine your skills, to develop the mindset that will allow you to handle what's coming. Because sometimes the delay isn't a denial. It's preparation for something bigger than you expected. When you rush the process, you might get something, but it won't be sustainable. You might force an opportunity before you're ready for it. You might enter a situation before you have the wisdom to handle it. But when you allow things to unfold in their own time, when you trust that your work is not in vain, you create something lasting. Patience isn't easy, but it's necessary. Because the best things in life don't come when you want them. They come when you're truly ready for them. Fear is one of the most powerful forces in life. It has the ability to stop us before we even begin. It convinces us that we are not ready, that we are not capable, that we will fail. It keeps us stuck in jobs we hate, in relationships that drain us, in situations that no longer serve us. Fear tells us that change is dangerous, that uncertainty is a threat, and that staying where we are, even if we are unhappy, is safer than stepping into the unknown. But fear is a liar. Fear makes us believe that it is protecting us, but what it's really doing is trapping us. It whispers stories of worst-case scenarios, of rejection, of failure, of embarrassment. It magnifies risk and downplays possibility. It convinces us that we are not strong enough, smart enough, or brave enough to move forward. And if we listen to it long enough, we start to believe it. But here's the truth. Fear only has power when we give it power. Think about the times in your life when fear held you back. Maybe you wanted to start something new, but fear told you that you weren't qualified. Maybe you wanted to take a risk, but fear convinced you that you would fail. Maybe you had an opportunity right in front of you, but fear made you hesitate, and in that hesitation, the opportunity passed. Now, think about the times when you pushed past fear. Maybe you were terrified, but you did it anyway, and when you did, you realized that the thing you were so afraid of wasn't as bad as you imagined, that most of the fear was in your head, that once you took action, the fear started to fade. That's because fear doesn't survive in motion. It thrives in hesitation. The longer you wait, the louder it gets. But the moment you take a step, no matter how small, the fear starts to lose its grip. Letting go of fear doesn't mean you won't feel afraid. It means you won't let fear make decisions for you. It means you acknowledge the fear, but you move forward anyway. Fear is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that you are stepping into something bigger than yourself. It means you are growing. It means you are pushing beyond your comfort zone. And that is exactly where transformation happens. People who achieve great things in life aren't fearless. They feel the fear, but they don't let it control them. They understand that fear is part of the process, but it doesn't define the outcome. They know that fear's job is to keep them small, but their purpose is bigger than their fear. The truth is, most of the things we fear never actually happen. We spend so much time worrying about worst-case scenarios, yet when we look back, we realize that most of our fears were illusions, barriers we created in our own minds. And even when things don't go as planned, we find that we are more resilient than we thought. That failure wasn't the end, but a lesson. That rejection wasn't a roadblock, but redirection. That uncertainty wasn't something to fear, but an opportunity for growth. The key to letting go of fear is shifting your focus. Instead of asking, what if I fail, ask, what if I succeed? Instead of focusing on what could go wrong, focus on what could go right. Instead of being afraid of the unknown, be excited about the possibilities. Fear loses its power when we stop feeding it, when we take action despite it, when we refuse to let it keep us stuck in places we've outgrown. When we recognize that fear is just a story we've been telling ourselves, and that we have the power to write a new one. There are moments in life when things just don't make sense. You put in the effort, but the results don't come. You take a step forward, only to be knocked 2 steps back. You plan, you prepare, you try to do everything right, yet somehow things still fall apart. And in those moments, the question that haunts you the most is why? Why did that opportunity slip through your fingers? Why did that relationship end when you thought it was meant to last? Why are you struggling when others seem to be moving ahead so easily? When life doesn't unfold the way we expect, our first instinct is to assume that something is wrong, that we missed a step, that we failed, that maybe we're just not good enough. But what if the delays, the detours, and even the disappointments are not signs of failure, but part of a bigger picture? Rusting the bigger picture means understanding that just because you don't see the full story yet doesn't mean it's not being written. It's about realizing that life is not happening to you, it's happening for you, even when it doesn't feel like it. Think about the times in your past when things didn't go according to plan, but later you realized why. The job you didn't get, the person who walked away, the path you thought you were supposed to take that suddenly disappeared. At the time, it felt like rejection, it felt like loss, but looking back, you can see that what seemed like a setback was actually redirection. Because your actions redirected you. Didn't get that job because something better was waiting for you. Maybe that relationship ended because you were meant to grow in ways you couldn't if you had stayed. Maybe that delay wasn't wasted time, but preparation for something greater than you imagined. The problem is, we don't get to see the full picture while we're in the middle of it. We see the puzzle pieces, but not the finished masterpiece. And because we can't see the full picture yet, we assume the missing pieces mean something is broken. But nothing is broken. Nothing is wasted. Every experience, every challenge, every loss is part of something greater. The moments that feel like dead ends are often just pauses in the journey, moments where life is rearranging things in ways we don't yet understand. And if we let go of the need to control every detail, if we stop resisting the process, we can start to see that even the hardest moments serve a purpose. Trusting the bigger picture requires faith, not just in a spiritual sense, but in the belief that things are unfolding exactly as they should. It means understanding that life has a rhythm, a timing, and a wisdom that goes beyond what we can comprehend in the moment. It's easy to trust when things are going well, but real trust is built in the waiting, in the uncertainty, in the moments when nothing makes sense, yet you choose to believe that there is meaning in the chaos. The truth is, we don't always get what we want, but we get what we need. We don't always move at the speed we desire, but we move at the speed that prepares us for what's next. And every time we think we've been set back, we are actually being set up for something greater. When we stop trying to force every detail, when we stop fighting the unknown, we make space for something better than what we imagine. We begin to see that nothing in life is random, that even the most confusing moments are part of a story that is still unfolding, that even when we don't understand, we can trust, because the bigger picture is always being painted whether we see it yet or not. We are told that success comes to those who hustle, who grind, who push harder than everyone else. We glorify the struggle, believing that if we just do more, control more, force more, then things will work out exactly as we want them to. But what if the key isn't in forcing, but in flowing? What if true success, true fulfillment, comes not from gripping tightly, but from knowing when to act and when to step back? There is a difference between taking action and forcing an outcome. Action is intentional. It is moving with purpose, making choices, putting in the effort. It is doing your part. Forcing, on the other hand, is rooted in fear. It is the desperate need to control things beyond your power. It is ignoring the signs, pushing when the doors are clearly closed, exhausting yourself trying to manipulate an outcome that isn't meant to be. When you force things, you create resistance. You strain. You struggle. You put all your energy into making something happen on your timeline in your way without realizing that sometimes what you're chasing isn't even right for you. Sometimes the delay is protection. Sometimes the closed door is saving you from walking into something that isn't aligned with you. Think about the times in your life when you tried to force something, a job, a relationship, an opportunity. Maybe you ignored the red flags. Maybe you kept pushing even when everything in you was telling you to slow down. And in the end, it either fell apart or left you feeling drained, because what is forced rarely lasts. Now think about the times when things happened naturally, when the right opportunity, the right people, the right circumstances came together without you having to fight for them. It wasn't because you did nothing. You still took action, but you didn't force it. You moved with intention, but you allowed life to unfold. And when it did, it felt right. It felt aligned. It felt like things were falling into place rather than you having to push them into place. This is the balance. Acting without forcing. Doing the work, but not gripping so tightly that you strangle the possibility of something better. Because when you force something, you are operating from a place of lack. You are telling yourself, if I don't make this happen, nothing else will. But when you act with trust, you understand that what is truly meant for you will not require desperate effort. That doesn't mean you sit back and wait for life to hand you everything. It doesn't mean you stop working toward your goals. It means you move forward, but you also listen. You pay attention to the signs, to the energy, to the feeling of whether something is flowing or if you are just trying to force a door open that was never meant for you. Think of it like rowing a boat. You still have to row, you still have to put in the effort, but if you fight against the current, you exhaust yourself. If you force your way in the wrong direction, you make things harder than they need to be. But if you align with the flow, if you move with the current instead of against it, you still get where you need to go, but with ease, with grace, with energy left in you for the journey ahead. People often fear that if they don't force things, nothing will happen, but forcing is not the same as creating. Forcing is fear-driven. Creating is faith-driven. Forcing is exhausting. Creating is empowering. Forcing leads to frustration. Creating leads to alignment. The key is to take action without attachment. Do your best, give your all, but then let go of the desperate need for things to happen exactly as you planned. Because sometimes the greatest things in life come in ways you never expected. Sometimes what's waiting for you is better than what you were chasing. And sometimes the moment you stop forcing is the moment everything starts to fall into place.